Hello everybody, welcome to OCHD and welcome to another Jumputi Heroes video. Merry Christmas to everybody watching on Christmas Day. This video should be going up on Christmas Day. We're going to be looking at my predictions for what we might see in 2022. Which is something we do every year, an annual little predictions for the coming year. Before we get started on that though, I would like to take a look back at my predictions for 2018, or sorry, for the year of 2019 and for the year of 2020. No, that's not right. Year of 2020, year of 2021. That's it. So for the last 2 years, I want to look at my predictions and see what I got right, what I got wrong, and where I may have tried to improve this year. So starting off with the predictions for the year before last. So these are my predictions of what may come in 2020. I have ticked off in green all of the characters that I got right that came out that year. And I have ticked off in blue all the characters that came out in 2021. So as you can see, not very good. Looking back at this first set of predictions, I would say there's definitely a few things where I was just like, it was just not happening. It was just not happening. You know, I was predicting, okay, new series, sure, new series could get added at any time, but I predicted Robot X Laser Beam. Yeah, no, that's probably not going to happen. Slam Dunk has gone missing for a long time. I don't think we've had any Lucky Man content since I made these predictions. So Lucky Man, bit of a weird choice. Any characters from like smaller series, I would say there's still an argument it could happen. Like for example, Cascade. It's very possible we could get more Midori no Makiba content. I would say because it does look like they are going through and they are going back and trying to give just a little bit of content to every series, slowly but surely. Maybe a character like Cascade could get into the game. I would say the same applies to like Aoi Yume. There's a few picks in here that you would say could work. Keionagi, that prediction was made in a better time. We were in a better headspace when we made that prediction. Generally speaking, I would say these predictions are pretty poor. I think it's quite cool that some of them came through the following year, almost the same amount as came through in 2020. You know, a couple of the rogue picks as well, like Kimagure Orange Road. It seemed like they'd forgotten about that. Moeru Onisan seemed like they'd forgotten about that. And I was predicting We Never Learn before we got any We Never Learn characters. So pretty happy with how some of them came through. But generally speaking, some of these characters were never going to happen, I don't think. And yeah, it's not really worked out for me. 2021 predictions, however, went much better. I had a much different approach to things, and it almost paid off. You got to remember, the goal here is to at least get a line. And I've come close a couple of times. In this one in particular, I mean, there's like this vertical, very, very close. This one. Well, the reason I put a question mark here is because Mujika is technically in the game, but not as a playable character. She just appears as part of Sonju's win animation. So does she really count? I don't know. There were definitely some disappointments here. I mean, Chad, 2 years in a row. Chichi, 2 years in a row. Both sitting on their predictions, and I felt certain. Same with Panther. I felt like it's gotta come. iShield 21 only just getting the first bit of content we've seen for it since I made those first set of predictions. Dr. Stone has had content since then. No Taiju. Bleach has had loads of content. No Chad. Same with Dragon Ball, no Chichi. So there's some tricky ones. And you'll definitely see some of these characters carried over into my predictions for next year. And other ones, not so much. It's kind of difficult to stick with certain picks. Like for example, Mamiya from Fist of the North Star. It's impossible for me to tell when the next bit of Fist of the North Star content will come. And if it does come, will it be her? Impossible for me to say. Whereas with something like Bleach, we get loads of Bleach content every year. We get at least one feature festival for Bleach every year. Same with Dragon Ball. So you're sort of playing the odds by just putting these characters on every year and hoping they get picked. You could reevaluate and choose different characters. That is fair. You could do that. And in some instances, I may have done that. But there's definitely a lot of stuff where it's just, it feels too hard to like decide what would be added if that series did get content. I think we're going to see a lot of version 2s in 2022. And that's my only concern with my predictions is I think this is going to be the final year where I don't put any version 2 characters in the predictions. I think starting from next year, we're going to have to put version 2 characters in. Because a lot of characters I think will probably come next year. Stuff like, you know, sprite revamps of protagonists and stuff like that. Make it so difficult to figure out what characters might be added that are new. And a lot of the, like, glaring omissions are slowly being filled in. So it's very tricky. It's very, very tricky. I did do markedly better this year, I think. This middle, honestly, this row here, this kind of should have happened. We knew Siren was getting content, so I thought Agaha Yoshina, obvious pick. Didn't get added. Tien, to me, that was one of the obvious Dragon Ball picks that hadn't been added. And he wasn't. And then we had Baran from Dragon Quest. Again, a huge character that is not represented in the game yet. And once again, not added. So, disappointing. There's some disappointments. But I think there was also a lack of care a little bit for me. Like, I've got plenty of ticks. I could have got a line. I could have, if these were just in a different order. Of course, that's not how it works, but I think certain things I didn't consider. Like, for example, I put Sada Mizuki on a diagonal. Doesn't make any sense, because Inamaru Zuma getting content wasn't that likely. And if it did get content, it wasn't guaranteed to be him. And I definitely could see Hinamaru Zuma getting content this year. But again, I don't think it'll be him. I think it'll be a version 2 Hinamaru. So it's a bit like, why would you put him on a diagonal? He doesn't seem a given. And I think I did that a few times. Just bad choices. Just bad choices. I need more balanced rows, more balanced columns, and try and work out the diagonals. So I have made my wish list for 2022, which I will slowly reveal. Starting off in the middle, because that is the most important square. It accounts for a column, a row, and 2 sets of diagonals. So pretty important, and I've done it again. Agaha Yoshina, but this time it's happening. We know Siren has a feature festival. Didn't just say event this time. They said feature festival. They promised us a feature festival. Even if it didn't explicitly say it on the roadmap, they had said previously in an interview that there would be a feature festival and it would add the protagonist of Siren. So, Agaha Yoshina from Siren. That is our first spot. A very strong starting point. Maybe an obvious pick. There are a few obvious picks in here. We're trying to win this year. Obviously, I'm not going to get bingo. I'm not going to guess 49 characters and they all get added. But I have tried my best to vary it, to make it feel fresh. A lot of characters I'd like to see in here. And at the same time, make it possible that we maybe at least get a line. So, where should we go from here? I don't even know. I've got so many to go through. Let's go down to the bottom. Or near the bottom. No, it is the bottom. It's Hiryu from Siren. The reason I put Hiryu on is because Siren's getting a feature festival, not just a little event. He's one of the main characters. To me, it just seems obvious, especially because we already have Amamiya as a free-to-play unit. Maybe she gets like a limited with her like corrupt form. I don't even remember what it was called, but maybe she gets a version 2. But realistically, Hiryu's probably getting in, even if he ends up being like a Transcendent class event or something. He should really be gacha. I'd like him to be gacha. But he should be added. Obviously, there are no guarantees in this game. You saw my previous wish list. There are a lot of characters I still think should already be in the game that are not here. Can't be helped. It can't be helped. But let's move on to a character that I think could be coming very, very soon. As soon, perhaps, as a week or so from now. And that is Yamato from One Piece. You've seen my predictions for what I think might come for New Year. Yamato is one of those things that I think, yes, this could be the big blockbuster unit for the 20 million download celebration for New Year. Is there any sort of guarantee we'll get Yamato this year? No. So it is a little bit risky putting Yamato on a diagonal. However, is One Piece. And one thing we can be certain of is that One Piece will get a significant amount of content this year. We know some of it already. We know we're going to get Jinbei. We know, well, I mean, we don't know that we'll get Jinbei this year, but I mean, we know they've got Jinbei in their locker. They've got Tashigi. They've got Komurasaki. Version 2 Carrot. Kobe, like they have stuff in their locker. So we know there's going to be some of that stuff potentially coming over. But I think Yamato is money. I think Yamato is definitely money. Limited? Possibly a limited. Possibly like a standard gacha and then a limited later version 2, something like that. There's potential. There's definitely potential. I know some people will say, I mean, Yamato only just showed up. I mean, Wano's like, you know, it's been going on for a long time, but it's not really, you know. There are One Piece characters that have been missing for a long time. Yamato was only introduced like in the last year or so. So does it make sense? I don't know. But I have chosen Yamato, so deal with it. And then in my second row, we have Goldie Roger. Now this, I think, is probably one of the bolder picks. Not on a diagonal, because I don't really back it necessarily. But we get 2 Musos a year. Logically, if One Piece gets one, it will be Roger. If it's not Roger, maybe like Dragon, maybe like it's difficult because a lot of the characters that potentially could be a Muso in a lot of different series, there's definitely an argument of, well, how do you know they're going to come this year? How do you know? And I don't know. And I even predicted last year, I didn't put it in my bingo, but I did predict that Roger would come as the Muso, and he didn't. So he didn't come for the 3rd anniversary, he didn't come for the 3.5. Where's the guarantee he'll come for the 4th? There isn't one, really. Now, I will say I have put 2 potential dangerous picks here for One Piece. But Yamato is probably the character I want most, and Roger is probably the character I expect the most. I haven't included any characters that are imported from Taiwan, so maybe that's not a good idea. But, you know. The only thing I would say that could potentially be a hint that Roger might be coming is the fact that we have something called the Captain Plan, which is starting with the 4th anniversary. Now, I have speculated as to what that may be, and my personal opinion is that they are going to introduce some kind of captain/leader skill into the game for all the characters. The same way One Piece Treasure Cruise has it, the same way Dragon Ball has it. I assume they've gone with the word captain rather than leader, because a lot of the stuff in Jumputi is themed around the boat. You know, you're on the boat to the different islands and to Jumputi Island. So logically, it makes sense to use the title of captain, and the best person to introduce a new captain skill, thing, ability, whatever you want to call it, should be Roger. Should, of all the characters in all of the manga and Shonen Jump, it should be Roger. So maybe a bold prediction. I don't know. Maybe not so much. I mean, it's got to be someone huge. So why not, Roger? Why not? Next up, let's have I think my only pick from Saint Seiya, and it's one that's coming over from last year, and that is Gemini Cannon I don't know if this is maybe a strong pick. We do obviously we've got like a little bit of Saint Seiya content came out for Christmas over on the Taiwan server. Is there any sort of guarantee that we're going to get like a Saint Seiya feature festival this year? Not really. We didn't have one last year. And there's still a decent amount of content, I would say, hasn't come over from the Taiwan server, but not enough for a feature festival yet. We've got Aldebaran we don't have. We've got the Surplus Saints we don't have. And then there's like some legend summons, but like a lot of those I maybe think won't come over anyway. And then the new Hyoga and the new Poseidon. So does Canon fit in with all of those? Not really. Sort of. Like, does it make sense? Look, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know. I think Saint Seiya should get a feature festival, logically, this year. Whether it will or not, that's up to the Jumputi gods. But if any character is added out of nowhere, I'd quite like it to be canon. That's just me. That's just what I have read of Saint Seiya, which is not all of it, but it's a decent amount of it. And we'll see. I mean, that's going to be the case for all these characters here, but I think especially for Saint Seiya, that's why I've only chosen one pick, because I'm not confident we'll get a feature festival, but it's on the cards. It is a definite possibility. Seeing as we skipped one last year, and seeing as there is a little bit of content from Taiwan, it could happen. Let's go with my JoJo picks, which, coming over from last year, we have Jolene. This is a dangerous pick from me. I say dangerous, but I mean, you know, the anime's popping off right now. I know people are excited for the next set of episodes to come out. I don't know when that's happening, but you know, it seems obvious. It seems obvious, you know. I do have another JoJo pick, which again is coming over from last year, and that is Lisa. But my defense is, I feel like in terms of big characters that are missing, in the early parts of JoJo, there's not a lot. Part 1, you can make an argument for maybe Speedwagon, Strezzo, that's it. Part 2, Streets again, and then I guess the Pillarmen, but then I don't even know how they're going to handle that. And I did say Lisa. Now, I would say if any part from, like, you know, parts 1 to 5 needs another feature festival, or needs a proper event, a proper feature festival, part 5 obviously still needs a lot of content. There's not that much left of part 4. I would say there's hardly anything left of part 3. There's not really enough of part 1. Part 2 definitely has just enough to make a decent event out of. So I would say if they wanted to make a part 2 event, I'm fully down. Lisa totally can make it in. Now, as for part 6, this is technically predicting a new series to be added to the game. Admittedly, we have known for a long time that they did plan from the get-go to add parts 1 to 6 to the game. And so far, we've got as far as part 5. And now the anime is coming out. There's no worries about spoilers. There's no worries about, you know, jumping the gun. The popularity is there. We know the people that like Jolene, they exist. They are playing Jumputi. So it makes sense. It does make sense. However, I am very much not confident in either of these JoJo picks. I think JoJo is definitely one of the harder ones to pick for, because there are, I'll say, 6 parts to choose from. There could be an argument for 7 and 8, whether they technically count for Jumputi heroes. But certainly parts 1 through 6, there's a lot of content there, all in all things told. I think part 2, I'm hoping we'll get an event. Like, if they did like a part 2 feature fest, your limited was Joseph and Caesar, maybe dual unit, you can have Lisa, and I mean, I don't know how you'd handle the standard gacha necessarily. But there's definitely enough characters left that you could make something. You could scrape something together, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping for more JoJo content though, because it does feel a little bit like, oh, Taiwan can't have JoJo content, so Japan server gets hardly anything. And that kind of sucks. Like last year we had, well, this year, last year, we had one JoJo set. We had Part 4 Jotaro and Kira. And that was it. And that's such a shame. That's such a shame. JoJo is such a good series. There's so much content to choose from. So I have my disappointments, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Speaking of stuff that's come over from last year, Baran from Dragon Quest. Just seems obvious to me that Dragon Quest will get something. Whether or not it will be a feature festival or not, I don't know. I would argue that even if it doesn't get a feature festival, Dai is very much one of the characters in need of a new sprite. We've seen lots of characters get new sprites this year, get version 2s this year. And so if they wanted to add a version 3 Dai, bear in mind version 1 and version 2 came out quite near each other, so their sprites are fairly dated. They release a version 3 Dai, and you can have a new sprite and everything, and you can put him up against Baran. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a feature festival, it could just be any throwaway event. That works. That works. As much as I would like a feature festival, trying to be a realist here, the devs seem to have forgotten Dragon Quest exists. So I'm just hoping that, much like the case with iShield 21, much like the case with Hikaru no Go, they at some point do remember. Just even if it's just for one event, one ensemble, anything, and they chuck in Baran. And like I said, I do think a version 2 Dai is very likely, but we're not putting version 2s on the board, or version 3 or whatever, version whatever, X plus. We're not putting any of those on the board, so Baran is my only hope. You could definitely make an argument for other characters from Dragon Quest, like Leona, like Crocodile. Like there are characters that are quite important to the story, still are not represented in the game. But I think some of them, it's a bit tricky to guess, because if we don't know we're getting a feature festival, it's impossible for me to say, oh yeah, those characters will definitely be added. And also, one of the things I'm noticing is a lot of the series that we might get a feature festival for, it does feel a lot like we'll get a lot of version 2s. Like, I could totally see them doing a Dragon Quest feature festival, and we get a new Dai, we get a new Hyunko, we get a new Pop, and it's like, how much space is there left for new characters to be added? How many of those are going to be enemies? It becomes very difficult to predict the characters. So, I think that's a strong guess, but I don't really know. Next up, let's go with my Naruto picks. Alright, so Naruto is a tricky one. Because Naruto is going to be getting a lot of content this year. We know from the get-go, Naruto is getting a feature festival, Boruto is getting a feature festival, and there will be some kind of Naruto and the Scarlet Springs, what's it called? The 7th Hokage and the Scarlet Springs, whatever it's called. Naruto, the final few volumes after the end of Naruto. We're going to get some content for each of those series. That's a lot. That is a lot of content we're talking about here. To start off with Naruto, these picks were troubling. I really didn't know who to choose. I feel like that Naruto Feature Festival is going to be pumped full of version 2s. We'll start off with who I've chosen, which is the Mizukage, and I have also chosen Tobirama Senju. Now, this is sort of me splitting my choices a little bit. I think there is a good chance we see the Edo Tensei previous Hokages during this event. We already know Casey and Minato is done, so the chances of us getting a new Hashirama, getting Tobirama, getting well, we know the 3rd Hokage, Sarutobi, is done. Hiruzen Sarutobi. So logically, if they wanted to make an Edo Tensei version of him, I mean, they don't even need to. They can just release the old one. It doesn't matter. But we know it's done because it was on the Taiwan version. So they could go that way with it. Or they could go the way of adding the Kages from the other lands. Like the Raikage, who we know is finished. Like Onuki, like the Mizukage. Like there are options there as well. Both of these things happen roughly around the same part of the story, And they kind of match up with other content we've gotten, like for example the Naruto and Sasuke. I know a lot of the scenes for Sasuke is from earlier in the story, but some of the interactions he has with the Naruto are specifically from later in the story. So there's sort of there's a little something there. It's tricky. Naruto in particular, I feel like version 2s are very likely. One of the things that I think is very, very likely, and you know, you're welcome to disagree with me on this one because I don't really have a strong basis for this. There's not a strong history of them doing this, but next year, 2022, is the year of the tiger. You may remember my predictions saying that I thought we would get a new Zanzas for New Year. I still hope we do get that. But 2022, Year of the Tiger, logically that does mean that we should get a version 2 Might Guy in his Night Guy form. A lot of his techniques are named after a tiger or tigers, and that would be a great way to introduce some of the stuff happening in that part of the story, which would tie in with, like I said, either the Kages or the previous Hokage. That all those parts of the story are quite near each other, so if they want a through line for that event, they can do that. Bear in mind, last time they did a Naruto event that was based around the war, and they had loads of content from all over the place just sewed together. So they could just do that again. I don't know. But I would say I do think Night Guy Limited would be likely for this year. And then for next year, which is 2023, is the Year of the Rabbit. And up until this point, we have not had Kaguya added to the game yet. We have also not, one of the big ones I was talking about earlier, we don't have Sulong Carrot yet, but she might come at some point. Before then, she might come in 2023. I don't know. But 2023, Year of the Rabbit, obviously Kaguya, the Moon Rabbit, would make sense for her to come. And I believe Lunar New Year is actually a little bit earlier in 2023. It's like mid to late January. So it is totally possible that on Lunar New Year they could just drop Kaguya and have Kaguya countered by Sage of the Sixth Path Naruto. Don't know if that'll be the case. Obviously we're talking a long far in advance at this point, but that is something I am theorizing. That's something I'm cooking up in my head. Speaking of Naruto, we have some more picks to talk about. Let's start with Boruto, which is the event straight after Naruto. Those events might also spill into each other. It's a little bit unclear right now, but I do believe we will get Mitsuki from Boruto because, considering we've already got Boruto, and I think, how many characters are there that could realistically be standard gacha in a Boruto event? There's no guarantee we will get a standard gacha. I mean, if the events are tied together, it might just be Naruto standard gacha and then Boruto gets like a limited or something. We don't know. But I think Mitsuki is the most likely character from Boruto that we do not currently have. I guess it really does kind of depend how they tie the two events together. They might not be tied together at all. They might be completely unrelated. But it does feel like, because they are right next to each other, that there will be something going on there. I don't know what. And I would also expect us to get... where is she? Sarada Uchiha. Now, this one is obvious, of course, but you may notice I have chosen Sarada Uchiha from Naruto and the Seventh Hokage and the Scarlet Springs and whatever it's called. Because I think the reason they're covering that arc is because they're going to give us the Kishimoto version of Sarada rather than the Boruto version of Sarada. And I think that's the only reason you would cover that arc. There's not really a lot to add from that arc. Like, you add Shin Uchiha and then a bunch of stuff that's already in Boruto. There's hardly anything that happens in that storyline. Like, I mean, it depends how in depth they want to go with it. Like, they might do like a full event, in which case we might see like adult versions of Karin and Suigetsu and all them. or Orochimaru. It might be an opportunity to introduce adult Naruto and Sasuke if they haven't already appeared in the Boruto event. Maybe they'll introduce adult Naruto during the Boruto event and then adult Sasuke during the Scarlet Springs event. Hard to say, but I hope this is how they do it. I hope the version of Sarada we get is Kishimoto's, and then I don't really care about the rest. I just think the way she's drawn in the Boruto manga, I don't really vibe with it. So I would appreciate the Kishimoto version at least. And that's all the Naruto stuff. That's all the Naruto stuff. What should we move on to next? Okay, look, my only pick from Buso Renkin, which is Papillon, one of the big enemies, one of the big villains, antagonists of the series, and seems like an obvious choice if we're going to get a feature festival. Another series where I haven't really read enough of it. I've only read like the first volume, so I couldn't really tell you who we might expect to stand at gacha as like transcendent class events and stuff. Are we going to get version 2s of the main characters that we've already had introduced? I don't know. I would assume Kazuki Muto will get a version 2 because the one we've got at the moment is just like an event unit. But Papillon, I think, probably the most likely villain. There will be other villains, so I suppose anybody that's in the series that's a particularly prominent villain has a chance, but major antagonists, I guess it just made sense to me. So hopefully I'm right, because I've stuck him on a diagonal there. I also put Mitsuki on a diagonal, but I think Mitsuki has a very, very good chance of being in here. Same with Sarada, which is why she's also on one. Papillon, well, I mean, if Buso Renkin is getting a feature festival, which they said it would, should be fine. I think it should be fine. Then next up, who should? Oh, Basil from Katekyo Hitman Reborn. Listen, I'm a big Katekyo Hitman Reborn fan, but these developers, they got a little something about Katekyo Hitman Reborn. I don't know. We got 2 feature festivals, 2 years. We got a feature festival 2 years in a row, and then we got a Muso character, which is very unexpected. And so there's definitely a feeling of, well, they're probably going to add more. What are they going to add? So there's going to be so many like version 2, 3, 4, whatever from Katekyo Hitman Reborn. It's just the nature of the series, I think. But Basil, I would say, is one of the only characters missing who is still like has potential to be standard gacha. That is like, I don't know, maybe there's a couple of others. I'd say he's the most logical. He does show up quite early and then sort of doesn't have as much utilization until later in the story. But later in the story, he does at least show up and do something. So I'm hoping he can at least get standard gacha, maybe even a transcendent class event, something. Not confident in that pick, but I had to put something Katekyo Hitman Reborn on, and all I could think of was like version 2s, version 3s, whatever. I really do hope we get our limited Zanzus this year. Other than that, I have no confidence in any of my picks. Devs have released a lot of Sunas this year, so it could just be another Suna, I don't know. But would be cool anyway. Now, let's talk... What other events have they officially announced? They've announced Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho. And I struggled with picks for these series that weren't version 2s. I would argue we still need a free-to-play Gon. They should probably have another crack at like a good, decent version of Gon that's like... you know, because we've got like the buff-up macho adult Gon with the long hair, but... the unit is so old, it's not really the same, is it? So maybe they can make a new version of Gon Limit, I don't know. Definitely a free-to-play one would work for me. But other than like version 2s and whatever, while there are some characters there that definitely could work, especially characters from the Phantom Troop, it's so hard to say for sure they'll be added. And I did have Shalnark on here before, which I don't think is a bad pick, but I didn't back it. Instead, I've gone with Aluka, Now this, again, it's hard to say what will be added from Hunter x Hunter, especially because it is one of these crossover events. Like, you know, in the My Hero Academia World Trigger event, My Hero Academia got some of the most prominent villains that were missing added to the game, and World Trigger got a few villains from a very short, somewhat unimportant arc. It's a bit harsh to call it unimportant, but anyone who's read World Trigger will know these are not the big bad. They're not really on the same sort of level of importance within their universe as characters like Twice and Darby and you know, the League of Villains. So it's so tricky because you just don't know. You don't know with the villains how they're going to handle it. Now, I would argue with Yu Yu Hakusho, version 2 villains, version 3 villains, whatever, are somewhat likely because there's not that much to pick from Yu Yu Hakusho. Hunter x Hunter has a lot more to pick from, but they might not deem some of it worth adding. Like, any characters that have shown up and then just not done anything, like, how do you make that into a unit? At least with Alucard, there's something there. I could totally see, like, version 2 Illumi, a new version of Killua, maybe. Maybe you get... Well, I mean, maybe Killua will be involved in some kind of dual unit, I don't know, but Alucard could definitely be added. Something we don't talk about, Killua and Hiei, the sisters link, or the relatives link, however you want to call it, there. It is there, so maybe they could be a dual unit, and maybe we could get their respective siblings as, like, farmables. That could be... I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about that event because I was very much unimpressed with the last crossover event. I know some people enjoyed it, but it went on too long. They spread too little content out over too long a period. It didn't work for me. And I'm worried they'll do the same here. Especially because it's leading us into the 4th anniversary, and that does seem like something they would do. They do have, like, what is essentially a 2.5 week event. And they'll stretch out to 4 weeks, but with only 3 of those weeks, they're expecting you to play the event, and then the last week is countdown to the anniversary. That seems the most likely. But maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance. And as for my Yu Yu Hakusho pick, I don't think they were on the list last year that I can recall. I'm really trying to think. I don't think they were. It's Itsuki. I would argue the most prominent villain not featured. Well, maybe, like, there's a few characters like Suzaku. That's a bit earlier in the story. Like, I would argue we've got 2 versions of Sensui, no version of Itsuki. That's a bit odd. That's a bit odd to me. But I would argue Itsuki is maybe a stronger pick than Alucard, simply based on the fact that they were like, yeah, 2 versions of Sensui, and then they just basically didn't touch that arc at all beyond that. So it's the only arc left where they've got a decent chunk of content to pull from, I would argue. So I don't know. That arc, that event in particular, is very weird to me. I'm really wondering how they're gonna do it, especially with the dual unit stuff. Like, are they gonna stick with the same formula from the World Trigger thing and the My Hero Academia thing, or are they gonna go a whole different way? Because if I was them, I would have a slightly different approach than they had last year. Whether or not that's the way they see it, I mean, that might have been a profitable event for them. I don't know. But to me, purely looking at the way people responded to the event, not just in Discord, but also on like Twitter, Japanese fans, not just English fans, there was definitely a feeling of it's just a little bit too long. There's just not quite enough content here. And they're picking 2 series, they don't have a lot of content left to pick from. I'm hoping the reason for that is by pushing them together, they can scrape together enough content from the 2 to make one decent sized event. But very possible that that's not the case. Next up, let's go... Who should we go with? Let's go with one further down the list, because we've gone from a lot at the top. let's go. My only pick from Assassination Classroom, it is Etona. Assassination Classroom, ridiculously underserved considering it was quite high up on a popularity poll, and as a result of that popularity poll it got like 2 new characters, both of which being special seasonals, and then no more content for like another year, and then I got 1 new unit in an ensemble event, and then that was it. So definitely underserved. I kind of looked through the series and I think the most likely picks, there's maybe 2 more students I would say are like solid picks that definitely could get added, and then there's like teachers, and then there's antagonists, and then beyond that it's a little bit like it's hard to decipher who they might choose if they did want to do a full feature festival. So Etona is sort of a pick of like, if they do a feature festival, would probably be standard gacha. If they don't do a full feature festival, has a chance in any given ensemble. So I'm hoping for the Assassination Classroom fans that they can get a bit more content. While I have read it myself, I'm not that bothered about it not getting that much content, because it's not like one of my favourite series or anything, but I do think for the fans of the series, heavily underserved. I do find it very strange that they have these popularity polls and they will straight up tell us the results. They will tell us who won, and then nothing will really happen with it. However, there is an argument that due to COVID, a lot of stuff got delayed, a lot of stuff got rescheduled for different points in time. And I mean, really, if you're looking back at this point, the game has been out for, I mean, coming up on 4 years. And COVID has been present for a significant amount of that time now. We're approaching the point where it's like, okay, half of the game's lifespan has been under COVID restrictions. So it's somewhat understandable that maybe they did the polls and maybe they had stuff ready and they couldn't go anywhere with it because they had to reschedule everything. So maybe there is some Assassination Classroom content left under the hood, waiting to be released. You could say the same about The Prince of Tennis and, you know, other series that did well on popularity polls. And maybe that's why it's taken us so long to get the feature festival for Siren, the feature festival for Buso Rankin. Maybe they could have come out in 2021 and everything was just delayed, so it just didn't happen. We will see on that one. But if that is the case and Assassination Classroom does get more, very, very cool. Very, very cool. Let's pick someone from the bottom here. Not a particularly strong pick here. Kinnikuman Soldier, or his real name, I guess, spoilers, Kinniku Ataru. My guy. He is my guy. This guy, 100%, I would love to see added to the game. You drop a limited Kinniku Ataru, I'm there. 8,250 rubies. Let's fucking go. The problem is, Kinnikuman is very difficult to predict content for, because we got a feature festival to which, to be honest, as much as I felt it was deserved, I didn't see coming. And since then, it's not been touched that much. We have had Kinnikuman versus Kinnikuman Super Phoenix. Beyond that, nothing. So, for me to select to select Ataru, and not only that, select Ramen Man, is maybe a little bit bold. And these two were on the picks last year, so I've already fumbled with them before, and I might be doing it again. However, as I was going through the list, and I was trying my best to make as many of the picks as possible as likely as possible, choosing characters that were genuinely plausible in every regard, I realised 49 characters is a lot. And I could do it, in a sense, being a bit boring. If I did include version 2s, if I did include characters from the Tier 1 server that I felt would come over, it would be a lot easier. But I want at least a few picks in here that it's like, genuinely have a chance, but it's hard for me to say are likely. And are just characters that I want. And in this case, Ramen Man so deserved, should be in the game. And Ataru, a little bit trickier because I really do feel like he should be a limited. Are we going to get another Kinnikuman limited? This would be our third one. Considering, well, I mean, it's had a feature festival, but I mean, I don't know. It feels like one of those series that, because it's so old, it gets somewhat sporadic treatment. Bear in mind, though, still running. I mean, I say still running. It did stop running for a very long time, but it is running currently. So they sort of have new content to pull from, even though it's not in Weekly Shonen Jump. They have stolen the pages from the other magazines before, so there's a chance. There's a chance. I pray that we can get at least one of them, and this is what I've kind of done with some of these predictions. I don't believe we will get both of these characters, but I would say there is a decent chance we could get one of them. So by putting 2 picks in there, we're spreading our luck. They're on different rows, different columns, so it could work. It could work. Let's move up a little bit, and let's go to... Oh, this is a good one. Sven from Black Cat. Another one of the characters I would say is a glaring omission. Black Cat doesn't have a substantial amount of content. I wouldn't necessarily expect it to get a substantial amount of content. However, one of the main characters still not included. It baffles me. I have put Sven on predictions before, but maybe this year. Fully could be this year. I mean, what makes me say this year? Nothing in particular, but definitely feels like a glaring omission, and I feel like we're slowly going back and we're hitting up the series that have glaring omissions and we're adding new characters. So maybe we get Sven, and maybe we get a version 2 train that's like a farmable or something like that. I would say that's on the cards. It's got to be on the cards, surely. And let's next go to a slightly less creative pick, Utado from Kimetsu no Yaiba. 100% getting added in this year. I have no doubt in my mind Utado is getting added this year. We know they have the flashiest event, or whatever they're calling it, 21 million downloads. That is going to be Tengen, and he is going to be a limited, and he is going to counter Gyutaro. They already have the sprite finished for Gyutaro. They obviously have to still make like the animations and stuff, but he exists in the game already in a sense. He has to be added. He has to be added. It just makes too much sense for him to not be added, and that is why he's on a diagonal. He just has to be there. Let's actually have a look at another. Who's another diagonal that we can choose? Okay, this is one of my weaker diagonals. I have chosen Monta from iShield 21. I had been picking Panther every year, and every year I was disappointed when he didn't get added. So I've gone with a slightly maybe more realistic pick, because he is one of the main characters, part of the main cast. And at some point I do think we might get like a version 2 Hiruma as a limited. They might give us an iShield 21 feature festival. It's tricky selecting sports series, I have to be honest. It's definitely not advisable, because it just doesn't happen. Sports series just don't get the love that... I mean, it's deserved love. Sports series are popular. I feel like the devs maybe have a certain feeling of how do we make this a compelling and interesting event. But the Haikyuu event slapped. I swear most people love the Haikyuu event for the characters it added, so I don't see why this would be any different. An iShield 21 event. It is a little bit annoying that iShield 21 is not available. What I've learned is recently, a lot of series that are available on the Shonen Jump service, on the Viz Media service, but are not available for free in the vault, you have to buy them. A lot of those series are like that, because Viz Media has the distribution rights for them, but it is not actually a series that is part of the vault on the Shonen Jump Plus service in Japan. So if you go on the Shonen Jump Plus service and you put in iShield 21, nothing will come up. it is still a Shueisha property, but if you want to buy the series, you have to get it on Amazon. You have to download the digital version on Amazon, or you can buy the physical copies. And the English version is available on the Viz Media service on the Shonen Jump app, but you need to purchase the volumes. You can't read it as part of the vault. And so I think that's where part of the disconnect is between certain series. Like, certain series are on the app, but you have to pay for them. Like, what's another one? Hoshin Engi, Saint Seiya, on the app, but you have to pay for them. You can't just get them as part of the vault membership. So, a bit disappointing, because I think iShield 21 is really good, and I don't think there's many good scans of it out there. So, I mean, if anybody wants to make good scans, all you got to do is buy however many I think it's like 30, 40 volumes. Just buy all of those on Amazon's digital service. They're like 450 yen each, something like that. Go through the app. Unless you know a way to dump all the chapters, just screenshot all the chapters, crop them all, and then just put the translations in. Easy peasy. It'll take you, no time at all. And then you can be the guy that has made iShield 21 available in good quality. So shout out to you if you do manage to do that. I'm sure you will. Another sports series, Hinamaru Zumo. I've gone for what I think is a slightly more realistic pick, and that is Yokozuna Jiro. Jiro, or is it Jino? I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The Yokozuna. Now, the reason I picked him is because after looking at what they have added from iShield 21 and what they have added from Hikaru no Go and a few other series where they've gone back and given us a new version of the protagonist and then like a major antagonist or a major opponent or a rival or whatever you want to call it, it did seem to me that in instances where they've done that, they've chosen the big goal. It's not necessarily laid out in iShield 21 that Yamato is the big goal, but that is the original iShield 21. It's something that's talked about very early on, and you build up to it. And then the same with Hikaru no Go. I mean, the main rival for the protagonist is, of course, Akira. So it just made sense. It just made sense to add him. And I would say the main goal for Hinamaru is to become the Yokozuna, which of course means he needs to defeat the Yokozuna. So logically, the character we're missing and the character that should be added if we do get a version 2 Hinamaru is the Yokozuna. Will we get more Hinamaru Zuma content? That's very, very debatable. And obviously I have put Hinamaru Zuma content on before and it hasn't come through. But you never know. You never know. This could be the year. This could be the year for Hinamaru Zumo. Maybe. Anyway, let's next go to top row. And this is on a diagonal because I genuinely believe that this is cut content. This is something that has been made for the game, just didn't get added. And that is Makyoin Ogre. People that were watching when the Hot Springs event came out, they will know that I genuinely believe this. I think Makyoin Ogre was supposed to be the event countered by the limited Yuna and was just cut. Now the reason it was cut, I think it's because the Twitter account had hit the milestone it needed. I think was it 400,000 followers or something? I think it hit that milestone and then it lost that milestone. And so they were waiting for the duration of the Bleach event, making the Bleach event longer to try and get back up to that milestone. I could be way off on that, but it really felt like she was meant to be there. Bear in mind, Yuna counted nothing. So it really felt like she should have been the catastrophe class stage. Could potentially just be repurposed as a limited. Could be still used as a catastrophe stage, but maybe in an ensemble event. Either way, she should be added. 100% should be added, and I genuinely believe she is a unit that is... They have finished her. She is in the files somewhere. We just have to wait for them to be released. I think she's the only example of that on this list. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But let's choose another diagonal, and that is Ryusui from Dr. Stone. I think this is the most likely character to see from Dr. Stone. Whether it's another feature festival, whether it's an ensemble, I feel like this is the character we are most likely to see. It's true at some point we might get like a free-to-play Senku or something like that. And there are a lot of characters missing that are important to the story. I mentioned before Taiju, he was on my predictions last year. He's not here this year. I feel like Ryusui is popular enough that logically he will get in. Whether it's this year or not, I obviously have no indicator because I haven't seen anything on the roadmap that would suggest that he's going to be added this year. But hoping second half of the year, maybe another Dr. Stone feature festival, maybe an ensemble, something. And also, bear in mind, Captain Plan. And this guy, like, if you've read Dr. Stone, I mean, they talk about the Captain Plan on the roadmap. This would be one of the guys you'd want. This would be one of the guys you'd want to make a special event themed around either captains or about journeys or about travels. This is your guy. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for Fanny. Ryusui will be standard gacha or something like that. Who else have we got? Let's just click a random one. Hades Sensei from Hoken Shitsu no Shinigami. This is one of those picks I put in where it's like, okay, so he's gonna be added. Because we know Hoken Shitsu no Shinigami is getting content this year. He is the protagonist. It's just that simple. When I say the protagonist, I haven't actually read the series. So I assume he's the protagonist. He's at least the main figure of the series in the same way that Yuna is the main figure of the series in Yuna's Haunted Hot Springs, although I know she's not the protagonist per se. So I don't know if Hades is actually the protagonist because I haven't read it, but he's definitely the titular character, and so I would definitely expect him to be added. To go along with him, we have Inamaru, who, as much as I hate to say, because I'm not a big fan of the series, yeah, he's probably getting added this year because we know the series is getting added to the game. They have said it's getting added to the game, and he is the titular character. So that's two pretty easy picks that I think we can safely say will be added. I didn't want to put them on diagonals though, because it's like, while it is very obvious, A, it's sort of boring, and B, they're not characters I'm particularly excited for. A lot of the diagonals are characters I'm really somewhat anticipating being added, or I feel like genuinely deserve to be added. So, not to detract from these series, their new series, a lot of people do like them. It's just not series for me personally. Next up, we have... let's go with this one. Kodai Hoshumi from Haikyuu. I did struggle to pick a Haikyuu character, which I found odd, because it seems like Haikyuu getting more content should happen, but then it didn't really get any this year. Hasn't really had anything since its feature festival last year, so I didn't really know what to go with, and especially because the characters that I think that are the most likely are probably the Mia brothers, and I have no idea how that's going to be implemented. Will they be a dual unit? Will they be separate units? Could they be gacha? I mean, it kind of depends, right? I was also thinking about some of the third years and stuff, but then when I looked at the crossover on Kotodaman, it kind of just shoved all the third years to the side. They were their own unit, one single unit, all the third years together. And that kind of said to me, maybe in Japan the third years just aren't as popular as some of the other characters. Which seems a shame, but I mean, I guess it's very possible. So I didn't really want to guess them, and instead I just said, you know what? Definitely a character I could see maybe facing off against maybe a free-to-play Hinata? Maybe? Or maybe like a new standard gacha Hinata? I don't know, but like definitely two characters that face off against each other that have sort of similarities. If you wanted to go for that rivals type thing, while I would say, yeah, technically maybe Hinata's rival is Kageyama, these characters have more in common, so maybe. But yeah, tricky because it's a sports series, and there's no guarantee we'll get any sports series. Like, we might go the entire year and not get a single sports series, except for the Prince of Tennis, which we know is coming. Speaking of which, might as well talk about the Prince of Tennis. We have Momoshiro, and there's another one somewhere. There's another one somewhere. Where is he? Uh, I'll find him. Anyway, so we've got Momoshiro, who I would say probably... Is he the most likely character to be added? I don't really know. I thought we'll definitely get a version 2 Ryoma. I think we'll definitely get a version 2 Ryoma. Fuji, harder to say. That's another one. I feel like Kikomaru and Oishi should be a dual unit, but then they probably wouldn't be limited, so I don't know how that would work. Would they be like standard gacha? Maybe. Would you make them separate units? Maybe. I personally think it would be cool to see Inui as like a free-to-play unit at least. But then, if you do an event, how many of the characters are going to be from Seigaku and how many of them are going to be from other schools? Because part of the excitement is adding characters from other schools. But I feel like I've gone with two somewhat safe picks in Momoshiro and Kaido, because I think that even if most of the event is like not Seigaku, it's new characters from other schools, I feel like these two in particular should still get in. We don't actually know for sure that it is a feature festival, I don't think, do we? Do we know Prince of Tennis is a feature festival? I don't think so. Maybe. Well, it doesn't matter. Whether it is or not, I feel like these two, if we're getting more Prince of Tennis content, are as solid a pick as I can put on the board. So, if it's someone else from the Prince of Tennis, well then just go fuck myself. I don't know. And let's pick some more. Let's pick Zebra. One of these days I won't put Zebra on my list, and I'm hoping that will be because he is already in the game. How has he not been added to the game yet? We've managed to plow through a whole bunch of Toriko content. Admittedly, it was few and far between. Slowly it's begun to accumulate. But when you look back at some of the characters we have, it's like, how do we have Teppei and we don't have Zebra? That's just insane to me. But, don't get me wrong, I'm happy about Teppei. But my point is that Zebra just... How is he not already in the game? So, a safe pick, maybe. I kind of wanted to put Tengu Brunch on here, but it's too risky. He's a character I can't necessarily see being added. Maybe he will. Like, maybe if they do like a Toriko event and we get like a standard gacha and it has like Zebra and Brunch and a bunch of them and it's all focused on like the gourmet world and all that. That could be very cool. Very, very cool. But the idea of us even getting a Toriko feature festival, that... I don't know. Is that on the cards? Maybe. There's certainly enough content to work with. I don't know if I trust these devs. And this one, I was a bit unsure about this one, but okay. I do have some justifications for this one. It's Phil from The Promised Neverland. Now, I know of all the characters you would pick, Phil is maybe a weird choice, but one of the most popular characters, if you look at the popularity polls, I think he's the most popular character that isn't already in the game. Phil is maybe a little bit tricky to implement because I don't exactly know what he would do other than just sort of stand there and put his arms up, which... I mean, I guess we've had characters that have done that before, so sure, why not? But the main thing for me is I didn't know who to pick from The Promised Neverland. Like, we had Mujika, who I took out because I don't think they're going to make her a separate unit. Maybe they will, but I don't think they will. And then beyond that, there's a lot of version 2s. Maybe you could say part of Norman's like faction could get added, but then which ones would be added? You can't guarantee they'll all be added. Who'll be standard gacha, who'll be whatever. If they do a Promised Neverland event, it might be a lot of version 2s. Again, it's a very, very tricky series to work with because all in all, while the length isn't too bad, there aren't that many characters that I would say are certainties to get in. So I've gone with a popular pick. This might be my undoing. I don't know. I haven't put him on a diagonal, so it's whatever. It's whatever. But yeah, Phil. Maybe let's go over maybe a slightly more realistic pick, a pick I'm quite excited for, and that is Noct The guy from Black Clover. One of my favorite characters. A character I would highly expect to be limited. A character I would highly expect to be added to the game. The devs love Black Clover, so easy, innit? It's easy. Just add him. Simple. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when it comes to Black Clover, I feel like that's going to slowly get bumped up in status on the game. I know we joked about it when we said, oh yeah, like the developer loves it and all that stuff, but realistically, they've been milking Kimetsu no Yaiba. They're running out of content to milk. So once they're out of milk, where do they turn? You can't, they're not adding these new series, so Black Clover, My Hero Academia, these are the series that are probably going to take the hit. So I think Black Clover getting more content in 2022, very, very likely. This could be one of many characters added in 2022, but it's certainly the one that I've picked. Then let's finish off our first row. Well, not the first row, the sixth row, but let's finish a row for the first time. I've put Obaro from Gintama. I don't really know enough about Gintama to tell you who they would add. And that's not because I haven't tried to read it. I have, and I've got a decent length into it. And there's a few bits of stories that I've enjoyed, but I'm not going to keep forcing myself to try and read it. Maybe someday I'll get around to it, but, it's maybe just not for me. I don't know. There's definitely some good parts, though. And some of the good parts that I've read are a bit later in the story. So I was kind of picking through and seeing what characters could be added. There's lots and lots and lots of candidates for version 2, version 3, version 4, etc. Of the main cast, of some of the more popular characters that are like side characters. There's so many. But trying to find characters that would definitely be added, that are new characters, was a lot harder. Now, there is one that I haven't included here, and that's Utsudo. And the reason I haven't included him is because I don't necessarily know how he would be added, in what context, what event. Would he be limited? Would he be like a Muso, maybe? Like, does Gintama have any Muso-grade potential characters anymore? A lot of people argued that Umibozu could be it, but then we've got the old man version of Umibozu, and it's like, would we get the younger version? Or it's very tough, but either way, Gintama didn't get as much content this year as we expected, because it got a lot in previous years. So is that because this next year is going to have a lot? I think that's quite likely. And I've chosen Obaro because I'm gonna be real with you, I just like this design. That's it. I ain't gonna pretend I know. I don't know. I just like his design. So he's either coming or he ain't. I think it's decently likely based on what I've seen on the wiki, on the fandom wiki or whatever it's called. So fingers crossed. Bottom right corner, Yusei from World Trigger. We're going to get more World Trigger content, we know this for a fact. It's most likely going to be a feature festival. Yusei, I don't know how Yusei hasn't been added yet, but this is it. Yusei is going to be added this year. This is one of the ones I'm super confident in. Yusei will be added this year. World Trigger Feature Festival is going to bang. They're going to make up for all the characters that were missing from the ensemble, My Hero Academia, whatever event. And it's going to be an absolute sick event for every World Trigger fan. And Yusei is going to be in there. Either it might be this villain form, or it might be like the border version, whatever. But Yusei, let's go. And then, who else? Okay, I've put this one on a diagonal, and I don't know how confident I am in it. I maybe shouldn't have put it on a diagonal. It's Pegasus J. Crawford from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or what's his name in the English version? Maximilian Pegasus. I've chosen Pegasus because I think if we do get a Yu-Gi-Oh! Event, it is very likely it will be Duelist Kingdom, there is obviously other content still to work with. There's still some stuff missing from Battle City. There is still loads of like the end game Yu-Gi-Oh stuff that remains untouched. We've talked in the past of how cool it would be to see Dark Heroes, Bandit King Bakura and stuff like that. There's loads of cool stuff left in Yu-Gi-Oh, but Pegasus, I would say, is a very good pick for two reasons. One, if we get Duelist Kingdom, he's 100% in no matter what, so that's calm. But also, I think he'd actually really work well as like if they did like a Dark Heroes event, they gave us like a standard gacha Pegasus, and then you could have like a farmable free-to-play Yugi. That would bang! That would be so cool. Bear in mind, we do not have a free-to-play Yugi yet. We have the yellow Yugi, who is quite easy to get, and they have given him out for free before, but he is still a standard gacha unit. And then we have the blue Yugi, who's standard gacha. And then the red Yugi and the other red Yugi that are both limited. And then... Is that it? I think that's it. But then we've got a free-to-play Joey, but no free-to-play Yugi, so... That would be... Oh God, that would be so cool. They got to do another Dark Heroes event. They just didn't do one this year. It was so uncool. Maybe... I don't know, maybe for... After 4th Annie? I don't know. Well, actually, one of my predictions... Okay, so this is one of the more out there things. After 3rd Annie, they gave us a mini Kimetsu no Yaiba event. And it, you know, it was Kimetsu no Yaiba. You either loved it or you hated it. Same thing the previous year. The year before that, it was a different series. It was like a Hunter x Hunter Death Note thing. But either way, they do have a tendency to do like a mini event at the end of the anniversary. So, my argument is that after the anniversary this year, instead of doing Kimetsu no Yaiba, because it's done out, and they'll do other Kimetsu no Yaiba stuff elsewhere, if you wanted a true mini event to introduce a series and to get everybody hyped up, you would do Jujutsu Kaisen is it called Chapter 0? Jujutsu Kaisen 0? You would do Jujutsu Kaisen. I have put Yuta Okotsu there. There is a chance this could be introduced during New Year. There's a chance this could be introduced during the anniversary. There's a chance that we never see Jujutsu Kaisen in Jumputi ever. I don't know why it hasn't been added yet. I don't know when it will be added, if it will ever be added at all. Of course, they haven't released that information, but I think this year, this is needed. I think we've been rinsing a lot of popular series over and over, and some of those series you can continue to do so. They're going to keep doing that with One Piece, they're going to keep doing that with Naruto. But I think with some series, we're getting a bit low on the content you can rinse, you know. Stuff like Dragon Ball, there's not as much room to put stuff in ensemble events because you have to squeeze everything you can into the feature festivals. Stuff like Kimetsu no Yaiba, they're putting stuff in ensembles because they don't have enough left for a feature festival. If they do another one, I don't know how that's going to work. There's a lot of series where we're slowly getting to the point that there's just not that much content left. And so I think logically, if you were waiting for a time to bring out one of the big series that you hadn't done yet, this would be it. This would be the year. Now, there is another character I've chosen, and that is Power from Chainsaw Man. This is far less likely, simply because, well, I mean, is it less likely now that I mention it? Because Yuta is the protagonist of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, but not of Jujutsu Kaisen, while he's a character in Jujutsu Kaisen. So there's no guarantee that they introduce the series of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. They could, even if they do introduce the series, it might be Yuji. You don't know. You don't know. There's no way to know. With Chainsaw Man, they might just add Denji, and then it might be like a year, 2 years, 5 years until we get Power. You don't know. But I like Power. She's cool. So I've chosen Power. And, as for Jujutsu Kaisen 0, I think Zero stands well alone as its own mini event to introduce the series, and then later down the line they can go into in depth with all the different characters you can get. It'd be a good chance to give us a first form of all the all his classmates, and a first form of Gojo. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Those two picks are quite weak though, simply because we've done this before. Yuji was on my predictions for the last 2 years. It's not happening. I don't know why. It's just not happening. My hopes, I don't know. They've got something hidden up their sleeve. But I've been hoping that for a long time. So, I don't know. Let's start clearing off some rows. Top row, last character was Chichi. I mentioned her before. I think she's been on my list since the first year, but much like her, also Tien, the two of these, like, they just have to come at some point. They have so much potential with different, like, if you did like a tournament arc based event, Tien is an obvious pick. If you do, well, I mean, you could even argue Chichi is an obvious pick. If you do like a Valentine's event, Chichi is an obvious pick. Or a love-themed event, Chichi is an obvious pick. Like, there's so much potential there, and Dragon Ball is running out of content. There is not that much unique Dragon Ball content left. Unless you move on to Super, unless you move on to unaffiliated, outside of Shonen Jump content, there's not that much to work with outside of classic Dragon Ball. Both of these characters appear in classic Dragon Ball and in Dragon Ball proper, which we refer to as Dragon Ball Z in like the West. So, come on. Surely one of these has to be added at some point. It's been 3 years. Anyway. Another big pick. Potentially a Muso. Definitely potentially a limited. Nana Shimura from My Hero Academia. I was actually struggling with My Hero Academia characters. Because there are a lot of characters. Certainly a lot of characters. But it's like, who is like the most likely? That's really hard to pick. I think I did put another My Hero Academia character in here somewhere. But I'm struggling to remember who it was. I'm scrolling through the list, I can't see him. But, oh, yeah, Mirako. So I picked two characters here that I would argue have a decent chance of appearing. Two characters I love, by the way. But two characters that I think certainly potentially limited worthy. Mirako, I would say, considering Hawks was downgraded to standard gacha, she's probably standard gacha. But Nana Shimura definitely should be a limited. And the two of them just, like, if you're going to do a My Hero Academia event this year, there you go. I've given you two characters right there. Get to work. Then next up, we have, who else do we have? We have Akane from Dr. Slump. I feel like Dr. Slump should get some new content. It's been a while. It's been a long old while. And, I mean, we have a free-to-play Arale now. Would we get another Arale maybe? We don't have a limited Arale yet. I don't know how that would work. But it just hasn't been touched much. The series has not had much attention. And I could have put Obochaman. Obochaman might be more likely. But I like Akane's design, so it's Akane. I'm sorry, it's Akane. And then, next up, a Shokugeki no Soma pick. We have Kojiro Shinamiya. I feel like every time I've tried to make predictions from Shokugeki no Soma, I've got them wrong. But, considering he got his own spin-off manga, I feel he must be popular enough to be added to the game. And maybe even like content from the spin-off manga could be featured in the game. I don't know. But if you wanted to give us like a version 2 Megumi and put it up against him or something like that, that would be cool. If you wanted to make him standard gacha in an event, in an ensemble event or something, that would be cool. I highly doubt we get a Shokugeki no Soma feature festival at any point, but bear in mind that Gourmet Festival, considering that was like a bunch of content from different series smashed together, there might be some Shokugeki no Soma content left over, and he might be part of that, and it might be put into some random other event. So I don't know how likely that one is, but I think he's a cool enough character that he has a chance. He's got to be. Next up, we have Shinji from Bleach. Not my only pick from Bleach. I have, in fact, re-included Chad. I changed his picture. If I change his picture, maybe that means he'll get picked. I don't know. Why the devs haven't added Chad yet, that's beyond me. But Shinji, I feel like, considering no Vizards have been added, I know that's been a bit weird a bit of an odd choice by them, but definitely a character does enough in the series that he should at least be included in some way, shape or form at some point. And if you're going to do more Bleach content, whether it's more Thousand Year Blood War, whether you decide to visit another arc, he has a half decent chance of being included. So I think that's a strong pick for Shinji. For Chad, I mean, I don't even fucking know anymore, man. Do you know how long it's been? Still not in the game. He's one of the main characters. Maybe we'll get like a... No, that like Bleach is getting a new anime and stuff. Like, surely, guys, surely there's going to be a Bleach event this year, and surely my guy Chad's got to get something. He's got to get something. Let's finish up the list. We have Aomine from Kuroko no Basuke. Did I take him out last year and I've put him back in? I'm not sure. He might have been in last year. I don't know, but basically, now that they're revisiting series and putting stuff back in, I think it's very likely at some point we get Kuroko and Kagami as a dual unit. Maybe that's part of a Kuroko event. Maybe that's part of an ensemble. I don't know. But we're definitely going to get a rework of Kuroko sprite and Kagami sprite, whether it's on the same unit or on a separate unit, at some point. And Aomine not being in the game is a travesty. Absolute blasphemy. Again, loses points for chance of being included simply because it's a sports series, but he's my boy, so he's got to be. Oh yeah, by the way, I know I put Chad on the diagonal, which is probably insane, but this is his year. This is his year. I changed his picture. This is his year. Next up, we have Yui from Nisekoi, one of the only characters left from Nisekoi that hasn't been added. I have a feeling we've been getting a little bit of treatment of We Never Learn, where characters have been getting, well, I mean, I say it like it's happened a lot. It's happened this event. We've got like a special seasonal type thing where they've taken what would have been like a costume and they've turned it into a new version of the character, I guess, like to make them more limited worthy, to make them, I don't know. But basically, we've got the sensei and we've got Furuhashi sort of in seasonal costumes, but also they are new versions of the character in general. And I think that would be a good way to approach things with Nisekoi, and I think it's very possible we do see that with a lot of the Nisekoi characters. But if we're going to get a new character from Nisekoi, Yui is really one of the only ones left, so yeah, basically that. I don't think she was really anyone's best girl. Maybe she was, but she was certainly there. She was certainly there. And then finally, we have Toritsuka Reita from Psyche, The Disastrous Life of Psyche K. I've had other picks from Psyche on here before, even characters that I have preferred, but we're going purely based on, I looked at the popularity poll, he's one of the more popular characters, he's one of the characters that I feel like at some point maybe should have been included and wasn't, and look, Psyche might get something, and if it does, I think there's a good chance it's him. So that's the list. That is the predictions for 2022. Let me know what you're predicting for 2022 in the comments. I dare say that I've got a lot of picks on here that people are going to say are insane. That are definitely not going to happen. But surely there's some characters on here that you would agree would be awesome to see in Jumputi. But yeah, that's it for this video. It was quite long, I know, but hope you guys enjoyed if you did last to the end. And I will see you all soon. I don't know, soon.